Hey everybody, Kelly from Dork here. I've been threatening to do movie reviews for the past 2 years. I've been doing a lot of written reviews. I'm a writer, so I have been putting reviews of movies I've seen up on social media and been sending them around to friends and having a lot of very vibrant discussion about movies, but I haven't actually made any video reviews before. This is going to be my first. I'm really excited about this because, like I said, I've been threatening to do it for years, and this is something I'm very passionate about. I was raised by movies. They are a huge part of my academic background, and they're a big part of my storytelling and what makes me me. With that in mind, I want to address how I go about reviewing movies. I use what I call a 5 and 5 review, which means that when I watch a movie, I try to provide 5 good things about the movie, no matter how bad it is, and 5 bad things about the movie, no matter how good it is. Now, these are my personal preferences. Your mileage may vary. You may find that things that I dislike are things that you really like, and things that you like are things that I really didn't like. I'm pretty opinionated, but I also am pretty forgiving. I like to try to remind myself that even the worst movie of all time is somebody's unironic favorite. So with that in mind, I hope you go into these reviews with an open mind and that we have some fun together, and I might help you go see a good movie or avoid a really bad one. So today, if you couldn't tell, I'm going to be reviewing Birds of Prey, also called The Glorious Emancipation of Harley Quinn, or something like that. I don't have the caption right in front of me. So, why don't we start it off? Birds of Prey was very good. I was very surprised. I didn't go in with much of an expectation at all. Some friends shared some reviews with me before we went and saw it last night, and I was trying not to put too much stock in them because reviews can be really misleading. I hate going into movies all hyped up. It just means that it's a huge letdown, or it takes some of the edge off of a very good movie. That's why I like being really blindsided. The first John Wick, for example, I knew next to nothing about it going in aside from that Keanu Reeves was there and it involved a dog. And it turned out to be one of the best movies of that year and completely blew me away. And not just because I love Keanu Reeves almost as much as I love dogs. So when I saw Birds of Prey, I was really worried that it was going to be another Suicide Squad. I really didn't like Suicide Squad. I know, how could I have such a controversial opinion? But there was just a lot about it that really, really stunk. I think a YouTuber named Folding Ideas made a fantastic video on all of the problems in Suicide Squad. So if I'll try to link him below so you can go watch. It's a fantastic video. He is a great creator. And yeah, hope you'll like that. But Birds of Prey blew me away. And I'm going to get into why right now with 5 reasons why you should see Birds of Prey. So 5 good things about Birds of Prey. Thing number 1, Margot Robbie. She is the movie. She's fantastic. She obviously loves Harley Quinn. She loves playing her, and she embraces that role with such a vibrance and such a fanatical glee. She loves it. And I love it when you can see actors who enjoy their roles. They're not just doing this for a paycheck. They're doing it out of some deeper love. Margot Robbie loves being Harley Quinn. Now, her performance in Suicide Squad was one of the only redeeming parts of that movie, but here it's completely unparalleled. She takes this character to a next level. She's completely untethered. And while I was watching it, I couldn't help thinking of the film Tank Girl from the 90s and just how off the wall the character is. And it's got splashes from the Harley Quinn we know from Batman the Animated Series and the new 2019 Harley Quinn cartoon show, which if you haven't watched it, you really should. There's a lot of parallels here, and it's funny as hell. Besides that, Margot Robbie basically becomes a cartoon. She is, I don't want to say perfect because that seems hyperbolic, but she's just wonderful. She knows what the hell she's doing, and she pushes it right to that extreme. Her physicality in this role is nuts. The number of times that you can tell that it's not a stunt performer and it's actually her. She worked incredibly hard for this, and you can tell. It's wonderful. But I think what she deserves more credit than anything for isn't her acting. It's her producing of this. Now, she has been lobbying, or had been lobbying since 2015 to get a Harley Quinn solo movie made. She worked on this project for 3 years before it finally got greenlit. And in that time, I can't imagine how many different drafts and different permutations that Birds of Prey went through. When it was finally greenlit, it was a huge deal because she had pushed the entire time to have a cast that was female focused, the female directed, but also a hard R rating. And don't mistake me, this movie is a hard R, which we'll get into in a minute. Okay, everything good about this movie comes from the dedication that she put in as a producer. So Margot Robbie, you are the number one good thing about this movie. This movie was your movie and it was great. Number two, the editing. Now, this movie has a fast, frenetic energy that could have slipped numerous times. It goes between action scenes to quiet scenes to character building scenes to scenes where they're just chatting or shopping in a grocery store. And you need the right kind of editing to make sure that that flow is consistent. And there are a surprising amount of tones in this movie, from drugged up madness to John Wick style fight scenes to just humorous breakup stuff. It's fantastic. I haven't seen a movie that flip-flopped between tones this well since Into the Spider-Verse. It just plays with its tone dial so adeptly that you don't even notice. It all feels natural. And the editors that worked on this role, or on this film, were Jay Cassidy and Evan Schiff. And they are phenomenal. I think that their work on A Star Is Born is probably a really good indicator of this, because this movie is edited a lot to the time of music. It's very musical. It has a very distinct rhythm and movement. Now, these editors also worked on American Hustle. They worked on Fury and a bunch of other things. Everything that is editing based in this movie, Birds of Prey is everything in editing that Suicide Squad wasn't. Everything that was wrong with Suicide Squad's editing, Birds of Prey gets right. It keeps the momentum going and keeps the story interesting without ever letting it fall flat. Number 3, Kathy Yan is director, and Matthew Labatique's cinematography. I'm going to butcher that name. Labatique's cinema... and Matthew Labatique's cinematography. I'm technically cheating because I wrote these 5 out and then realized I hadn't mentioned the cinematographer. So I had to come back. So technically this is 6 good things. This film has a lot of moving parts, and there are places where it makes really bold choices, and not just in the level of violence that's in this movie, but also the themes and the events that happen into it. There are times in this movie where I was squirming in my seat, and not from violence, but because of implied situations that the female characters have to endure. And I think that's incredibly important, because as a guy, I found that really, really uncomfortable. But it didn't look... I went with a lot of female friends and my partner, and it seemed like everybody else was... It seemed almost kind of normal. But to me, it was really shocking and disturbing to see this through a female lens. I think that's fantastic. I think that the putting a focus on things that aren't normally part of the conversation that is on the screen is really fantastic. It makes me feel a bit of empathy, and it makes me realize how scary some of life is for a lot of women, all women, most... I don't know. I just don't want to be part of that scariness, and I hope that a lot of other guys going to take that from it, that there's some problems out there. And yeah, I'm getting lost in this, but let's talk about the cinematography. Matthew Labatique was a major highlight of the film. Okay, he has worked on a number of fantastically pretty movies. Requiem for a Dream, Black Swan, Venom. He worked on Venom. That was dark. But his choice of color, his choice of atmosphere, and just all of the shots they're beautiful. This is the most colorful movie you are going to see in 2020. Hell, it might be the most colorful movie you see for years. The just it is literal eye candy. It was like pouring sugar into my eyes. It was exactly what I wanted. It was like watching a unicorn fart. It was great, and you should absolutely see it in the theater for that reason, because you need those colors. I have no idea how it is in IMAX. I saw it in standard definition. Still awesome. Number 4, the soundtrack. Now, pop soundtracks and that highly immersive pop culture soundtrack being crammed into Hollywood releases is pretty standard with Hollywood movies these days. It's always been a part of the conversation and a part of the let's try that again from the top. Number 4, the soundtrack. I loved the soundtrack for this movie, and I know that big pop soundtracks, especially with like retro remixes of certain tracks, usually from the 80s or 90s, is a huge thing right now. It has been for years. I remember when I was a kid and the first Batman movie came out, the Tim Burton one, and the Joker's on a parade float and he's throwing out money to Kool and the Gang's celebration. And that's what that moment for me is when I think about when pop music really became an integral part of Hollywood movie, particularly superhero movies. And this movie's no exception. Ever since Guardians of the Galaxy, that type of retro pop has become a staple for any movie that's trying to show that it has fun, consistent, high energy. But the thing is, it doesn't always work. I think we can all remember when Suicide Squad tried it and failed. Captain Marvel as well tried that. And I have an entire rant I could do about the diegetic or non-diegetic soundtrack, the use of No Doubt's Just a Girl in the final fight. But that's a rant for another time. What I'm saying is there are times where movies do it wrong. Birds of Prey does it right. I haven't enjoyed a soundtrack this much since Into the Spider-Verse. I know I'm bringing Into the Spider-Verse up a lot, but it was a great movie and I loved it. This movie soundtrack is great, and it's one of the only times in recent memory I have been sitting in the theater and going, I'm going to buy this soundtrack. This is really good. Even the stuff that's composed for the movie is great. I will use it to prepare for role-playing games. I will use it to write to. I will use it to maybe even work out to. It's great. Enjoy the soundtrack. Find it online, YouTube or something. I don't know. I mean, here. Number 5, the stunt work and the fights. In this movie, every actor has their own unique fighting style. All of the characters have these styles that are designed to kind of flesh them out as people, so that no matter where you're looking on the screen, you are seeing something unique and different happening, and it's always fun and always surprising. And that's really hard with 4 protagonists, all with different fighting styles and tons of different goons. This movie felt a lot like a video game in that way, actually. And I mean that in a positive way, where you would have the speedy guy goon, you'd have the big guy goon, you'd have all of these different types of goons and mooks running around fighting them. And they would all fight differently, and you'd see these different combinations. It was like a tasting bar of fight styles. It was really good. And this movie's stunts, it is one of the best car chases I've seen in years. It has incredible explosions. It has incredible stunt work. It has some of the most brutal violence that you have ever seen in a mainstream film. And it just, there are times where you see a punch and you get really excited for the punch, and then the landing just makes you go, ah! I knocked my screen a little bit on that one. You just get so caught up in this, and the violence is so, I mean, there are times where I was flinching away from the screen because I didn't want to see this impact. So a warning for those of you who have sensitivity with kneecaps, crotches, and other things being struck, because it happens a lot. Now, the reason this is such a smooth and beautiful part of the movie is that the film had Jonathan Uesibio as the stunt coordinator and John Valera as the fight coordinator. Now, both of these guys are from 8711 Action Design, and they worked on the John Wick movies, Deadpool 2. So when I keep talking about John Wick, there's a There's a real reason why, because these are some of the John Wick people bringing this John Wick efficiency and a little bit of the extravagance into this movie, and it really pays off. This is probably some of their best work to date, and it is definitely the most brutal non-gun combat that I've seen in either John Wick. I think they did John Wick 2 or 3 primarily, and definitely more than Deadpool 2. My favorite part of all of this, though, is that with these action movies, it is an arms race. So the fact that Birds of Prey was this good and the action was this high caliber means that John Wick 4 and Deadpool 3 are going to be even better. And I love that type of competition. Now, I already said that I like Birds of Prey. So you got your 5 good things. Now it's time to talk about the 5 things about Birds of Prey that maybe weren't so good. So these are 5 bad things in Birds of Prey. First thing, the plot is a little thin. It involves an item chase, kind of a MacGuffin, a precocious kid, a forced team up. All of it is very, very much just in line to set up the set pieces and action pieces. It feels almost like they planned the action before they wrote the script, even though that's not the case, I'm pretty sure. Honestly, if you can stomach any 1990s action or action crime movie, you will be fine with this movie. It's got a lot of those forced, convoluted plot twists where, oh yes, of course this person knows this person. Why wouldn't they? Right? It kind of reminds me particularly of like when I was a kid, I used to rent Van Damme movies on VHS from the rental store in the next town over. And for some reason, it kind of has the same vibe as Time Cop in the story department, where it's, yeah, okay, we want to go back in time, we want to do this thing. What's the most expeditious way to get us there? It's got a very Van Damme straight to video kind of story. It's not bad, but it's just, you're not here for the story. Number 2, retrospective narration and introductions. This movie has a lot of them. And what I mean by that is that it's when you're telling a story and you're like, oh, wait a minute, I forgot to tell you about Bob. Because Bob is very important to this story and has actually been in this story for about a half hour, but I forgot to mention him, so let's retroactively introduce him. This story does a lot of that. The story is largely told from Harley Quinn's point of view. The big problem there is that Harley Quinn isn't the type of character who's good at telling stories necessarily. She's very forgetful. A lot of the movie feels like you're hearing a story from like a 5-year-old or from a drunk friend at a party who really wants to tell you a funny story that happened this week, but you're really struggling to figure out what the point is at times. And for the first 2/3 of the movie, there is a lot of that where the narration keeps introducing characters and be like, oh, hold up. We forgot about this character who's integral to the plot. Let's jump back 30 minutes and re-show some clips. By the final act, they don't do it anymore. And honestly, this is just me nitpicking. I thought it got a little annoying, but I also really liked getting the background details of the characters. And I think that framing the story through Harley Quinn's lens and allowing us to kind of see the way her mind works is beneficial to us understanding the character and really loving the character. You may have different opinions on this. I don't know. You might love it. Number 3, the setting for the movie. Now, this is a real nitpick, but the movie it's too damn sunny. I know, but the creative team apparently wanted to set this in the street level of Gotham, where Bruce Wayne's up in the ivory towers looking down, and like there are these giant bank heists going around. Most of it is a top-down view of Gotham, and this was supposed to be a very street level movie, and because of that there's a lot of Chinatown markets and restaurants and nightclubs and other real street level places that feel like this is where a normal person would spend their time even if they weren't a supervillain. The problem with this is they decided to film the movie in LA. It feels really like Los Angeles whenever they're outdoors. When they're indoors, it's Gotham. They can set dress it as much as they want. Oh, it's a creepy warehouse. Yeah, it's Gotham. Oh, it's... and anytime they're in an actual location that isn't just a set, later on in the movie, they're on some piers, and it is very Gotham, and I love that return to this dark, foggy brooding. Because, Gotham is gloomy atmosphere and Gothic architecture. It's not Los Angeles. And it seemed like it's always sunny in Gotham. in a lot of ways. Like, I don't know, it was, I just kind of wished it had been filmed on the East Coast, because there is a sense of that East Coast oppressive atmosphere in most Batman media that was really absent here. And I know that this isn't technically, it's a Harley Quinn movie, it's not a Batman movie, but it's still Gotham. Don't take the goth out of Gotham. The team said that they wanted this to feel like a 1970s, 1980s Gotham, and maybe it did when they were making it a bit more, but after seeing Joker earlier this year, which was supposed to represent the 1970s in Gotham, which was basically New York in the 70s, this feels incredibly West Coast whenever they're outdoors. But the vibe, the timeline vibe, I got a very 90s vibe off of this, which, given the color scheme, seemed to work a little more for me. I don't know. Yeah, so good? Bad? Number 4, several of the characters were pretty underutilized. Huntress in particular was significantly changed from her comic book personality, at the very least, at least as far as I remember from reading her in the comics. Some hardcore fans might have a problem with that, but I overall enjoyed her character. In fact, I think that she was used too little. She seemed to be put up as a bit of a comic relief straight man at times, and that was fine, I guess. I would have liked an extra minute or two with her. You know, there were a couple of other characters that could have gotten an extra minute or two of screen time. You know, it's a 4.5 woman movie, and it only felt like maybe 2.5 of them got really fleshed out. It was really good to see Rosie Perez working again, though. I haven't seen her in quite a while. I kind of forgot she existed until this movie, and it's good to see her again. And number 5, the ending was really lazy. I don't know if this counts as a redoing plot, but the ending deserves a mention of its own, because I think it's really lazy. The wrap up itself is really kind of lazy. A lot of the things where you're like, oh, that's going to be a consequence later, this is going to have repercussions. There are no repercussions. It just everything's fine. It's just kind of weird. Like, the ending was very just rushed. All right, let's get it out of here. And maybe that's good, because the ending is so fast that you don't really remember the ending. And in fact, it actually took me quite a while to remember how it ended, even though I just saw it 12 hours ago. So what you're left with is cool action, great acting, and a really, really forgettable ending. I don't know, maybe it was planned. Overall, despite how thin this story is and a few nitpicks about design choices, this is a fantastic action film. Its tone, its energy, and its presence is far more consistent than any DCEU film before. This surpasses Shazam. Okay, Shazam was a great movie and a great ride, but it was really tonally inconsistent at times. Same with Wonder Woman. It was a very good film, but it had places that really lowered it, and it didn't keep that pacing consistency up into the third act. Aquaman was Aquaman. It was the smartest dumb movie of 2018, 2019, I forget. But this one, like, aside from a couple of minutes of weak ending that were still tonally consistent, this movie manages to maintain a level of consistency and quality throughout that no DCEU film has managed. It's good. It's the best DCEU film that there is so far. It's really exciting, because if they keep this up, they might have a good stable of movies coming out. I've been really disappointed with a lot of the DCEU stuff. This gives me hope. This movie is one part Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, one part John Wick. It is a John Wick chick flick. I saw this movie, like I said, with a bunch of female friends and with my partner. And normally, when I come out of a movie, I'm buzzing. Especially if it's a movie like Deadpool or John Wick. I come out and I'm feeling really cool. I'm feeling like, yeah, that's like me. Yeah, I'm cool too. I'm not that cool, but I feel it. I feel it for a moment, right? And when I stepped out into the lobby, I felt pretty good. You know, it wasn't the same buzz. But them, all of the women that I went to the movie with, were radiating battle auras of this energy. And I recognized it was the same energy that I get coming out of those movies. And I got to thinking about how rare it is that we get a movie like this. Do we have any other movies like this? Any that I don't know about where they're badass women who are having fun, being supportive of each other, and kicking ass, and it's good? Because I can think of some like female solo flicks that are pretty good. Like Atomic Blonde was really good, but it wasn't a movie about women. It was a movie about woman. You know, like this kind of movie is really rare. And while I was kind of just enjoying their energy, one of my friends said that it was really amazing to have a movie where the power fantasy was allowed to be their power fantasy. And I haven't stopped thinking about that since I left the theater, and how many power fantasies I get to have at the theater. How I can be Captain America, how I can be John Wick, but I don't see many of these things coming out for women. I think that this movie is a fantastic example of that. Everyone deserves to feel that same goofy, manic energy that I felt when I was a 16-year-old kid leaving the Matrix. Okay, like kicking shopping carts and like doing cartwheels around a parking lot and stupid shit. Everyone deserves to be that much of a goof. To feel that invigorated by a movie. I fucking love that. Everybody deserves it. And there's a lot to love about this movie. There really is. It's got a very strong feminist message in it. And depending on how much you like that in your movies, you might get different results out of it. I thought it was really good. It's unashamed about presenting a world through a female lens. At one point, it's incredibly obvious. It's the bad guy calls all of his henchmen and actually refers to them as men of Gotham. And it's a very she versus he kind of fight at the end that allows the women to become empowered and to help each other out and to be very supportive. They're very supportive of each other in this movie. And I think that the internet's going to have some problems with this movie, particular corners of the internet in particular. But I really hope that before anybody starts bashing this movie or downvoting it because of its message, they give it a chance. And they just try to go to the theater and maybe look around and maybe encourage some of their female friends to go with them and just enjoy the energy. Like, use some of your empathy and feel how just much fun the women around you are having with this movie. Because everybody deserves to feel like a badass. I'm going to give Birds of Prey an A or 4 out of 5 Harley Bats. That's going to be it for my first film review. I hope you enjoyed this. It's a work in progress, so we'll see how this goes in the future. Let me know if you like this, like and comment below. Say nice things. For more videos like this, subscribe and be sure to watch our role-playing streams and all of our other videos. You can find us on Twitch at twitch.tv/dorktales, here on YouTube at dorktales. And if you'd like to support the channel and help us do cooler things, bigger things, better things, you can find us at patreon.com/dorktales. Every little bit helps, and we like to do cool stuff. So thank you so much for tuning into my first review. I will see you next time. Bye, dorks. And I stop recording now!